In J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy world of Middle-earth, the Misty Mountains are an epic mountain range, and one of the most important features of Middle-earth's geography. The mountain chain is less well known by its alternative names. One of these is Hithagla. This was misspelled as Hithiglin on the original Lord of the Rings map. Other alternative names are the Mountains of Mist or the Towers of Mist. The range stretched continuously for some 900 miles across the continent of Middle-earth. The Misty Mountains were introduced to the world in Tolkien's 1937 book, The Hobbit. A vision of the mountains is invoked in the first chapter. Far over the Misty Mountains cold, they are encountered directly in Chapter 4. Further information about the mountains was added in Tolkien's subsequent publications. Middle-earth narrative. Geography. The Misty Mountains stretched continuously for some 900 miles, from Carn Dum in the north to Dol Baron in the south, and was a formidable barrier between the Middle-earth regions of Eriador and Rhovanion. The northernmost section of the Misty Mountains ran from Carn Dum to Mount Gundabad, and was known as the Mountains of Angmar. Mount Gundabad was where Durin awoke according to legend, though it was later an abode of orcs. Mount Gram, another orc nest, was not far away. Mount Gundabad was on the eastern side of the range, where it nearly joined the westernmost extremity of the Grey Mountains. The strategic gap was about 10 miles wide. The greatest dwarven realm in Middle-earth, Khazad-dûm, was located at the midpoint of the Misty Mountains. The area's three massive peaks, the mountains of Moria, were Caradhras, Celebdal and Fanuadhal. Under Celebdal was the main part of Khazad-dûm. It included the Endless Stair, which the dwarves built from the foundations of the mountain to its summit. The southernmost peak of the Misty Mountains was Methadras. From here the Great Range finally subsided into foothills, the last being Dol Baron. Here the southernmost foothills of the Misty Mountains looked across the Gap of Rohan to the northernmost foothills of the White Mountains. The Misty Mountains had very few passes. The most important of these were the High Pass and the Red Horn Pass. There was also a pass at the source of the Gladden. There were actually two alternative routes in the High Pass. The lower pass was more prone to being blocked by orcs, hence most travelers used the higher pass, except during those rare interludes when the orcs were suppressed. Valleys and rivers. Some of Middle-earth's notable valleys and dales lay in or close to the Misty Mountains. Rivendell was hidden in the foothills near the western end of the High Pass. Further south, the eastern end of the Red Horn Pass led into the Great Dimral Dale in the arms of the Mountains of Moria. This dale led on into Lothlorien, the Valley of Singing Gold. At the southern end of the Misty Mountains, Fangorn Forest reached right up into the eastern foothills. The deep dales that were filled with an ancient darkness. Nearby lay Nancurunia, where Isengard was built. It faced the Gap of Rohan. Rivers originating in the Misty Mountains, flowing west, Horwell, Bruinen, Saranen, Glanduin, and Isien. Flowing east, Langwell, Rushdown, Golem's Stream, Gladden, Silverlode, Nimrodal, Limelight, Intwash. History. The Misty Mountains were raised by Melkor in a primeval epoch of the First Age, no later than the War of the Powers. He hoped to impede Dorom, a god who often rode across Middle-earth hunting. The mountains were far taller in those days and had a more dreaded appearance. However, Orom established the High Pass, also called the Pass of Imladris and Tirith Forn and Andril. He did this to assist the Eldar to cross the mountains on the great journey to the west. Even so, the Misty Mountains were still viewed as too formidable by a large number of the elves. They forsook the Great Migration, and dwelt east of the mountains. This was a major sundering of the elves. The group who remained behind became the Nandor. Dwarves began to use the high pass later in the First Age. They connected the roads with this pass, which reinforced it as the major gateway between Eriador and the regions to the east. The great dwarf realm of Khazad-dûm had been established beneath the Misty Mountains earlier in the First Age, and flourished for thousands of years, until the unearthing of the Balrog in t.a. 1980. The dwarves then deserted Khazad-dûm, which then became known as Moria, and it came to be occupied by orcs and other creatures. In the year 3434 of the Second Age, the High Pass was used by the army of Gil-galad and Elendil when they marched east to Mordor in the War of the Last Alliance of Elves and Men. After this war, Isildur was slain by orcs watching the way back towards the pass. Third Age. Halflings had begun to migrate west across the mountains by the year 1050 of the Third Age. They were the ancestors of hobbits. By t.a. 1300, the Witch King established the realm of Angmar-Khandum. He was based there at the northern extreme of the mountains for several centuries. During this time the orcs spread through the Misty Mountains, and the High Pass became dangerous again. Only with the War of the Dwarves and Orcs, which nearly wiped out all orcs of the mountains, did it become safe again for a while. Nevertheless, by the time of the quest of Erebor, the goblins of Goblin Town had burrowed the way back to the pass, and thus captured Bilbo Baggins and Thorin Oakenshield's company of dwarves. The Fellowship of the Ring tried to cross the Redhorn Pass, but a blizzard forced the companions to go under the Misty Mountains instead of over them. There, in the subterranean realm of Moria, the Nine Walkers unexpectedly encountered the Balrog, Durin's bane. Gandalf fell with the Balrog into the uttermost depths of Moria and fought the Balrog all the way up the endless stair, finally slaying it by throwing it from the peak of Celebdal, but sacrificing his own life in doing so. Inhabitants eagles had eyries in the mountains from the earliest times. It was also anciently the habitat of great bears, who were said to be the ancestors of Beorn. Stone giants were another race that inhabited the outside of the mountains. Sometimes, because of the size, a stone giant could be mistaken for the side of the mountain itself. At times these creatures could reach heights of 40 feet tall. The only surviving report of stone giants was made by Bilbo and the 13 dwarves, as told in the Red Book of Westmarch in the chapter Over Hill and Under Hill. Various races made their homes underneath the Misty Mountains. The dwarf realm of Moria flourished from the First Age well into the Third. In the early Second Age, escapees from the War of Wrath established subterranean lairs, orcs and one Balrog. The Balrog was destroyed by Gandalf the Grey in TA 3019. Gollum, a key character of the Third Age of the Legendarium, was fascinated with the Misty Mountains as a youngster. When exiled from his original home, he followed an unnamed stream into the mountains, and lived underneath them for over 5 centuries. His home there was an island in an underground lake near Goblin Town. With him resided the One Ring. Works cited: Evans, Jonathan. Misty Mountains. In Drought, Michael D. C. J.R.R.Tolkien Encyclopedia, Scholarship and Critical Assessment. Routledge. pp. 431-432. ISBN 0-415-96942-5.